Hi, Tim Hart here. We had an interesting topic that was sent in as a question about what do you do with rotted trees? In other words, are there any special considerations in cutting rotted trees? I want to thank John Bevel for sending in this question. It said, "Hey Tim, I was wondering if maybe going over cutting down trees with partial rot in the center, and if you have any good tips on that subject. I've been logging a unit of Douglas fir that has a lot of root rot and the trunks have been compromised." And then also a follow-up question, a comment came in from Tim L. And Tim states that, "I'm curious about that one too. I have my methods that usually include a rope and pole saw depending on the amount and location of compromised wood." So Tim and John, I appreciate the questions and comments coming in, and hopefully some of this thought process will help you with putting together your plan on the next rotted tree situation that you have. Several identifiers will help you to formulate a better plan. Such things as looking for loose bark, sounding the tree with a hammer or axe to locate good fiber or hollow drum sounds, scratch around the tree to identify any broken or weakened roots that might show rot. Mushrooms and other fungi growing around that tree trunk or in the root sections can mean that you may have some possibilities of unstable root system. Definitely check for intertwined canopies. That's a situation that, as the tree starts to move, can cause roots that are not real strong to let go and you lose control. Vines are also something that you have to look closely for because any vines in the top can cause that root system to let go and again, loss of control. Rotted means that you have no hinge fiber that's pliable in the hinge area. To locate good fiber up or down the trunk, locate the best fiber situation. A vertical bore or plunge cut can be made to establish the fiber quality sometimes and will definitely identify a hollow or heart rot. Try to find a drop zone or target area that is in the forward lean of the tree. Going against lean or pushing and pulling doesn't always maintain control. You need a hinge and a notch open enough to minimize resistance and maintain control. A shallower notch can be a plus when dealing with bad lower fiber in a tree. Sometimes you can find stronger fiber in the last few years of growth around the outer edges. Sometimes, where the growth has tried to heal over bad fiber or a damaged area. This can usually be dependable fiber. If you can't establish a workable hinge, the tree will have to come down from the top. A bad fiber at the bottom doesn't make for a great tree to climb either. A bucket truck or crane is usually the better tool to utilize. I have several pictures of stumps and trees that I have taken up in Illinois recently, and you can see several situations of pine trees that were totally dried, standing, all bark gone. You can take a look at the situation of different fungi that's basically growing in the cracks, mushrooms that are growing around the root system, cracks in the trunk itself, either dry rot or wind shake, that could be a problem when you start to get into control. One thing that does help many times with those types of trees is a bore cut. If you think about if you have a forward leaner that you want to take down and the trunk is cracked or it's somehow weakened by rot in the center or edges, a bore cut can give you the opportunity to take and more or less reduce any stress or tension that's made as the tree starts to move forward. If you could kind of think about a A face notch goes in if you start a back cut on a tree that's kind of compromised. As you get up to those cracks, it could barber chair. It could split at those wind shakes or cracks. Whereas if you bore cut through, it relieves those pressures and you have the back strap of the tree that's holding until you're ready to release it. You'll, at that time, have your hinge at a proper setting of 10% or less to be able to control the tree and hopefully not split out or pull the hinge out and you lose control. I do hope some of these give you some things to think about, but don't forget just the standard that we talk of when it comes to planning. First of all, you have to have a spot wide enough and long enough. And with compromised trees, a forward lean situation is a good idea. The other thing is that you want to make sure that you check for obstacles and vines and those types of things for sure on compromised trees. Next, you look for leans. Side lean, so making sure that there's not any intertwined canopies or limbs that's going to connect, that's going to cause the tree to shake or lose control, break the hinge, because there's a lot of mechanical advantage from the top that comes in contact. So you want to try to steer that tree away from any crown or canopy. Then next you want to take and think through your escape. You've got to be able to get away from a tree like that. You don't want to be standing there while that tree starts to move. So you pick out a good location, hopefully 15 to 20 feet back or behind another tree or something, so that when you release that tree, when it starts to move, you're headed to that direction quickly, and you turn and watch the top, making sure that the canopy is not dropping or throwing items back towards you. Number 4, making sure that hinge, usually 10% or less in the thickness or width of the hinge. And you want to think about if there's any side lean to consider, you want to make sure that hinge is long enough. We usually try to shoot for 80% of the DBH as a minimum on hinge length. And then the last is whether you use a back cut or bore cut to establish the hinge. If you have any obstacles or different situations that could be hit with the tree, you want to make sure that you think through some rigging, because rope can stabilize, and a couple ropes in the top canopy can be something that can hopefully maintain control of the tree. But if there's no obstacles around, the hinge is really what does the steering. The ropes, if you pull too hard, can break the top out of a compromised tree, or pushing with a machine can do the same. The operator doesn't need to be there. So hopefully you have wedges that can support the tree until you're ready to release it, or support the tree until you're ready to pull a line so that you're not there beside the tree as it's starting to move. So an accident is an unplanned event. We plan thoroughly so we reduce accidents. And don't forget to come back and reevaluate your plan. Take a look and see what your results were. That's the way to get better at it, to see different scenarios and situations with fiber and be able to control them better in the future. Oh, this is Tim Hart, wishing you good sawing. And we hope to see you along the Forest Apps Road.